Good morning and welcome back to the BTN TV studio. I'm Andy Hoskins and I'm the editor of BTN Europe. Joining me now on the sofa are Guy Snelgar, Global Business Travel Director, sorry Guy, at the Advantage Travel Partnership, and Chris Lewis, founder and CEO of Travelogix. I managed not to
Mine's a bit simpler.
Yeah, thank you. So we are going to talk today in the next 10 minutes. It's not very long at all. We're going to talk about your Global Business Travel Review 4.0.
Yes, indeed.
Which has been released today.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
So let's start. Just give me some context about the report. What the scope of the data, whose data it is.
Yeah, okay. So obviously we specialize in the aggregation and consolidation and normalization, harmonization, reporting of travel data. So we've basically looked at the records that we've collected across our ecosystem from the 1st of Jan 2019 to the end of May 23. That record set is in the region of about 14.8 million records of a value of about 8.1 billion pounds. So we've got a really good spectrum of data, but it's essentially everything that we've collected across our entire ecosystem in our analytics platform.
Yeah, and are these all Advantage member TMCs?
Not exclusively Advantage.
Others? Okay.
No, not exclusively Advantage, but the numbers that we're looking at is basically across our entire network or domestic network, I should say. So everything, all of our new UK agents, the vast majority of whom are Advantage, which is good. But there are there are agencies outside the Advantage partnership that do contribute to the data.
And so from 2019 to pretty much the present day, so we've got that 2019 sort of baseline, which feels like that we might be referring to that forever.
Yeah, well, yeah, unfortunately.
And I've seen various iterations of your report and how the subsequent years and what they've done on the graph, and it's really interesting to watch develop. So, Guy, do you want to talk me through some of the key findings or the trends that you picked out in this latest version?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the interesting things and the great thing about working with Travelogix on the report is we all hear so much anecdotally from members, and you can pick any publication any week and there's another organisation putting another report out on what they're hearing. So what we do is taking that data and then mixing it with what we hear from the members, not just in the UK but around the world, and seeing kind of what the picture's painting there. And it's certainly the overwhelming thing is the strength of the recovery is continuing. Booking volumes up, similar to what we've seen, but continuing, where revenue now exceeding almost universally exceeding 2019 numbers, and the transaction numbers getting very close. I think 90% from domestic travel.
Yeah, it's at 91%, I think.
But within that, then you are starting to see trends that began to emerge post-pandemic continuing. So the length of trip, the average value of trip increasing. Now, some of that you can point at sort of increased travel costs pointing to that. But the increase in the length of trip seems to be reflecting what we're hearing anecdotally from corporate travel buyers about wanting this idea of more purposeful travel, maybe fewer trips but traveling better. And that's starting to wash through into the numbers now as we see an increase in that, but also an increase, and this matches with what we hear with the members, of corporates putting more of their spend through the TMCs. So for more elements. So I think 65% of our members say that they now feel they're getting a bigger share of that travel spend from existing customers than they were getting before.
Yeah, and we are seeing that where it's we are seeing those ancillary services being added as well. So it's not. I think historically we'd agree the TMCs were booking the flight, possibly the hotel, and then everything was left offline. We are seeing more flights, more hotels tagged on, more ground transport tagged on. Everything is definitely coming. Those ancillary services are now being woven and booked through the TMC for sure. And we've seen now, because of that, we're now seeing that average booking value come up. Like you say, some of it is attributed to higher costs, of course, but because there is more being booked, longer trips, the TMC is now benefiting from that because they've got everything booked in one place and they're starting to see those transaction levels increase. So it is all good news.
Certainly a lot of the trends that we hear about seem to be, the evidence is there that they are actually happening now. A couple of things I did pick out, which I found a little surprising. So the average transaction value is now, it was obviously going to be higher, but 45% higher.
Yes.
Which can't just be down to inflation.
It's not just down to inflation, no, but that is where we're seeing, obviously there is some inflation in there. The average cost of a fare is higher. And if we compare it to 2019, now there is more premium travel going on as well. So obviously more increase in premium travel is going to naturally bring that cost up. But again, we are seeing, because there's longer trips and we are now booking more hotels, more premium class travel, more ancillaries, that average transaction cost is definitely increasing.
Yeah, and that ties in with the average trip length, trip duration up from 7.1 to 8.2
8.2 days, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that matches. Guy, maybe with the increase in premium bookings, what's the logic behind that?
I mean, it's always a little bit tricky. You don't want to sort of read any sort of firm conclusions into the data. However, we know we've been hearing corporate travel buyers talking really since during and since the pandemic about this idea of traveller well-being coming up the agenda. And looking at cost not being the only driver for travel policy rules, and looking after travellers better. I think, the fewer but longer trips points towards that. But also allowing travellers, if they are travelling for longer trips, to maybe stay better and travel better. And this is the first time in the data that we're now seeing an increase in business class in particular, which would seem to echo what you're hearing anecdotally. Therefore, from corporate travellers and from the TMC members as well. That there is more of a focus on looking after the traveller and not necessarily punching down to the lowest possible cost for every single trip.
And I think there is an element as well where, obviously in 2019, the C-suite weren't travelling as much. I think because the C-suite are now getting on the road more, that's where we're starting to see that premium travel more. Because, when there was a bigger risk, the C-suite tend to travel less. And I think, we're all feeling more confident, there's less risk, there's no COVID, or there's no COVID. The C-suite are getting out there and travelling more.
So that's bumping the numbers up. One thing I found quite surprising was the advance purchase period is currently at 31.6 days, which seems
ridiculous
quite
compared
high
to
me.
absolutely.
Compared to the pandemic, as always, where it plummeted, but even compared to 2019, that seems like quite
even compared to 2019, we looked at that and thought the same, and we ran those numbers again and again, but they're absolutely correct. But I think, again, because you've got more confidence, not only have you got more confidence, you have got higher fares, and people know the sooner you book, the better fare you're going to be. And if we look at the fare rules they're booking, they are booking more flexible fares. So, again, that is, you can book further out, you've got the flexibility. We probably need to look at the cancellations and what happens thereafter. But, we're not, those cancellations and refunds, they're 75, 80% down. So we're not really seeing that either. I think it is just a matter of people feeling more confident and willing to spend more on those premium classes, but they still want to get value for money as much as possible, therefore have to book sooner. Locking in those fares a little bit sooner. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last couple of questions. Regional observations. The China effect, what have you seen there so far this year?
The China effect?
The China reopening.
Yeah, certainly, and there's some specific feedback in the report from one of our partners in China. Yes, their return to travel, particularly international travel, is lagging a little bit behind. Certainly, in the start of this year, they've seen a really positive rebound of travel, but international has been a bit slow with some of the restrictions still in place. But the predictions from that part of the world are that they expect to see all of the international capacity and the routes coming back by the end of the year, and the pent-up demand from travellers in that region is certainly there. And talking to UK members who travel to that part of the world, again, the same. It's probably been the last bit to come back, but really now starting to see that strong coming into the second half of the year and feeling very buoyant and optimistic about it.
Okay, which from the sounds from the report sounds a little bit different to transatlantic, which is potentially going to slow down in Q2 and Q3, I think it says in the report, because prices are, to quote, stubbornly high. So is that...
Yeah, I think there is certainly so far what we've been hearing is that while the prices were high, travellers were taking it on the chin and they needed to travel anyway. Again, I think still the washout from the pandemic of that pent-up demand and that need to travel and having missed it, that people were paying whatever they had to pay to travel and take the hit. I think inevitably as we get into the second half of the year, as people start looking at budgets, I think there is a feeling that where the prices do remain so excessively high, it is affecting some areas of travel, but ironically that's sort of being compensated in other areas. And so where I think there is a rationalisation of some trips, possibly due to cost, possibly due to sustainability, we're then seeing though a pickup on that kind of meetings and conference travel as kind of home workers are having to be brought together as teams and brought back into the business. So while the volumes are up, I think we are seeing a shift in the type of travel and the reasons that people travel away from maybe some of the traditional activity into more internal team-facing travel for a lot of companies.
That's certainly a sort of evolving facet of business travel, I suppose. I guess lastly, do either of you want to hazard a guess? We're sitting here in 12 months' time. What are we going to be talking about then? Are we going to be back to 2019? Are we right to still be talking about 2019? Do we need to move on from
talking
that?
about, I'm so over 2019. I think one of the nice things we are now, we're kind of certainly with having the fourth version of the report, we're kind of sort of a clear year ahead now, if you like, of coming out of the pandemic. So we're now talking more about versus 2022.
So we can talk about year on year.
So we're going to be talking about year on year. In terms of predictions of the future, I don't think that new normal has settled yet. I don't think we know quite what that looks like. Certainly when I took
standard seasonality yet.
No,
we don't have that track yet.
Right.
The
seasonality is still at the start of the year. It looked like we were getting back to normal patterns, and then March went strange, and then back up again in sort of April and May. I think talking to TMCs and to their customers, to the corporate travel buyers, it does feel like a lot of the discussions around sustainability initiatives and around traveller well-being are still in that discussion phase. A lot of companies, they have an intent, they have a strategy and an objective, but how that washes out into practically travel policy and behaviour, we're seeing elements of it. We're starting to see increases, the Rail Development Group reporting increases in travellers choosing rail over air, and more companies having that in their policy to preference that. But across the board, I think we're yet to see the physical impact of some of those new policies and new directions. And I think that's probably what we'll start to see towards back end of this year and going into next year, is as those start to emerge. But I think in a lot of cases, they're just going to continue the trends we're starting to see. That idea of longer trips, maybe fewer trips, but longer, more elements in the trip, the continued move from more value for money, more return on investment for travel, and the move from air to rail for more domestic travel and so on. So I think probably more of that is going to start to come into travellers' day-to-day lives at the moment.
Okay. Fantastic. Chris, do you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think I can't disagree with anything that Guy said there. I think from a technological point of view, I think we're obviously going to see the impact of AI on the industry. I think undoubtedly that has to happen. It's going to happen. We don't have a choice about it. We do need to adapt to that. So I think from a technological point of view, that's going to happen. And like Guy says, I think we're going to have to now start to see some practical application around sustainability now. It can't just be about counting the numbers. It needs to be about what we're doing about it. What change can we affect, and what can we drive? That needs to be a thing. And I think that will be built into policy as well. So you're talking about changing policy. There will be the factor of sustainability in policy at some point over the next 12 months as well. I think we're going to start to see that.
I think you're both right. A lot of corporates are in that sort of exploratory stage at the moment, and we're going to start seeing some policies implemented and actions taken. So that's definitely one to watch.
Definitely.
I think we've probably run over time, but it was well worth it, and obviously we could have talked for a lot longer. But thank you very much, Guy and Chris, for joining us in the BTN TV studio.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.